We're live.
All right, it's Thursday at 1 p.m. Central. It's Joey and Jason live training time. Joey, how you feeling this week, buddy?
Oh, it's a great week. How's everybody else doing? Drop a comment if you guys are watching this live or if you're watching the replay. That way we know where you guys are tuning in. But great week so far. How about you, Jason?
You know what? Just kicking ass and taking names over here. Been working with a lot of the clients that have been in it for the last couple of months this week and, hearing a lot of great stories. So I'm really excited. Gearing up for that next mastermind we got coming up in January. I think that's just about full. So excited about that. And I'm pumped to talk systems, man. I think, I'm going to kick it over to you as usual, but I think systems it's the thing that everybody tells us that they want number one when we get them. It's the most important thing to everybody. And it sometimes can get lost in the sexiness of sales and onboarding. So I'm really excited to dedicate some time today to talking about how we can solve problems long-term without having to energize those things every single day, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, 100%. Systems are the key to growth. So like you need to be really good at lead generation to have a strong business. You need to be great at sales. You need to be good at fulfillment and what you are actually the service you're providing. And that's all great for you to have an actual business and to provide a service to your local community and then have them give you money. You need all of that stuff. But to grow it, to grow the business and actually get yourself out of the business and not be an employee of your own business. Because look, you can have all of those things dialed in and still be an employee of your business because you're doing all of them, right? So to actually get out of that role and become the CEO of your business, you need systems. Otherwise, who else is going to be doing everything? Right. And that's why it's a super exciting thing for me to think about, talk about, because it's one of those things that I think you and I, Jason, excelled at because we're not doing the day to day. And I think it's a lot easier than people think it is once they identify the systems and then put them into action. Right now, there's always this mystique around systems, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I need systems, but they don't really know exactly what it is or how it works. And I
Yeah.
today we can pull back the curtain and show how easy it can be if you just go 100% at it.
The reason I thought that was so funny, Joey, is because I went to my very first mastermind in like 2013 or something. It was a long time ago. It's a great mastermind. But the key of that whole mastermind, the guy that was in charge was like, you guys need to get systems into your business. If you're not regularly doing $50,000 a month of EFT, you need to get systems. And I remember just being like, oh yeah, systems. I'll get systems. I'm going to go out and get systems. I had no idea. It was a couple of years until I actually put a little bit of time and effort into thinking like what a system meant. Like, oh, I've got spreadsheets, or like, oh, we have like rules about how our gym works, but we didn't actually have systems until we actually sat down and plotted those things out and then executed them over time. I don't think systems are in your computer, and I don't think systems are in the gym. I think it's a combination of both. It's having a plan in place and then executing that plan consistently, training to it, and building your culture around it, right? I thought we would do something fun. How would you define, Joey, what systems are within the context of your business?
Oh, yeah. So to me, a system is a process that you follow exactly the same way every time to facilitate an action that needs to be done at your business, right? And so with a system, you don't do things differently each time you do it. You don't give it to a different person each time. It is a defined process that somebody is responsible. And at first, it's usually the owner, right? You do it. But it is a defined process so you can reach a certain result, right? And a business can be made up of a lot of different systems, right? It can be as complex or as simple as it's required of that business. Gyms are pretty simple. There's not too many different systems you need. Whereas as you get larger companies, there's a ton of systems, which is required, and SOPs and all that stuff. But I think for owning a brick and mortar gym, it can be pretty simple. And I think sometimes it gets overcomplicated. And hopefully we can clear that up a little bit.
Yeah. The thing that always jumps out to me, I had a little benefit of knowing I was going to ask that question, Joey. But here's what I wrote. I said, structured methods to solve common tasks and problems that regularly need to occur within your business without using your memory or effort to achieve them. The effort part is only once you've assigned those things off to your staff. But to me, the number one thing that like separates, the monkeys from the entrepreneurs is not having to use your memory to make it happen. There's a lot of us that are, that started out as self-employed, where it's like, oh yeah, I got to take care of John's billing, and I got to take care of Sally's programming thing, and I got to do this and I got to do that. And you're capable of doing that. And I wrote about Dunbar's number a few weeks ago in that context. Now, if you want to grow beyond that, if you want to ascend to that entrepreneur level, you really have to take your memory and like your cognitive ability specifically out of it, right? I think a lot of times when I talk to coaches on these calls or to gym owners on these calls, the thing that I hear all the time is like, I want to assign this task to somebody, but I know that I can get it done better and quicker. And the answer is you can get it done better and quicker once, but can you get it done better and quicker forever by just taking that time to train that person how to do it and hand it off, right? All right, well, let's dive in. So we already kind of talked about what systems are. We kind of talked about why we need them, right? We want to eliminate inconsistency in our business. I think you can make profit with great sales and great fulfillment. I think you make wealth by having consistent skills or consistent systems that continue on forward. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because profit is one of those things that is a variable, right? You don't have consistent profit month over month if you were doing everything yourself, because it's so dependent on you, dependent on your mood and your motivation level, and dependent on your ability to close deals and all these different things. Your profit could vary a lot from month to month if you're doing all of it. If you have systems defined and it's not responsible for you, then you can have a lot more predictable profit, and then you can start to multiply that. And when you have a larger predictable profit, you're really generating wealth. And I think it's very doable. One thing that you said that I wanted to just, you said it in a certain way, and I really wanted to double down on it, but it's almost like a system to me is like a start to finish like process. You know what I mean? Where it's not always a problem, but it's not always fixing a problem. But like, as an example, onboarding a new customer, right? That's not a problem, but it should be done the same way every single time to create that consistent product and service, because businesses that really thrive are very, very consistent, right? And that way the customer always knows what to expect. So at a gym, as an example, is the onboarding experience exactly the same if you were to give this person to Coach John or Coach Sally? Is it the same, right? Because it needs to be, right? Because what if you're charging $69 a week or $299 a month, and Coach John just absolutely blows them away by doing everything that you're supposed to be doing as a coach, and that's the system you've assigned to them, right? The process, but Coach Sally doesn't, right? And now all of a sudden the consistency isn't there. It's going to be very difficult for you to grow your business because these two customers have a completely different experience, right? And so to me, that system is like, first, and we'll get into the deep of it, but first, that entrepreneur needs to absolutely master it, exactly how that process should go, and then they can delegate it off to somebody else. And I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs are scared to do that, because they're like, oh, well, so-and-so isn't going to do it as good as me. Well, that's going to be, when you decide to grow your business, that's going to be your number one task, is to make sure that everything's happening exactly as if you were doing it yourself. But to bring it full circle, yes, it's a defined process where you can say this, and it's bubbled up, and this is the client onboarding system, right? And then now you have these other systems, but together they make up that ecosystem of your entire gym, and you can start assigning these things to different people, but they're all self-contained systems, right? So hopefully that makes sense. At least that's how my mind works.
Absolutely. And one thing that a couple of things I wanted to hit on there is consistency will trump peak expectations any day of the week. I think if I were to sell somebody a package that had, let's say I was selling high ticket in my gym, and I sold them, I'm going to do this, I'm going to come to your house, I'm going to cook the meals for you, I'm going to do all this. If I can't do that every single day, all the time, that person's going to quit no matter what the price is. But if I tell them I'm going to execute on this, and that doable system that I can repeat consistently, then they're going to stick around forever. So in other words, everybody's so worried about getting like I'm the greatest trainer ever. I've been doing this for 25 years. I know all of my clients like the back of my hand. Ask Starbucks, do they make the best coffee, or do they make the same coffee every single time? And I have a graph. Normally, it's the first time in a while it's not on my whiteboard right here, or I show it to you. But normally I have a graph that I just keep on my whiteboard, and it's just this, because that's what entrepreneurs do. We peak and we valley. We come up with a great new idea, we execute it, and then we shift our focus to something else. Systems takes that and it puts our team over the top of it and just continues to perform consistently over time, right? I think that's a really great point. So let's dive into the systems that we teach here at FitBiz University. So I don't know if I do have it pulled up in front of me if you want if you want me to kind of go down them.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so if I open up our copy of our master operations sheet, we have sorry, my screen I'm on one screen today, so it's small.
You're good.
We start off with our master client roster. So talk a little bit about how we implement that master client roster. Most of our clients are coming in, already have clients. We only have a few that are brand new. So how do we get started with that? How do we manage that from day to day?
Yeah. So, you know what, before we get into that specific one, I think it's important to talk about like what system that actually lives in. And like, so the master client roster would be something that lives in the client or the operator's system. So in the operation system, let me pull up my screen really quick, because then we can break down these roles by the business.
That would be better. Yeah, that would be better.
Because let me pull it up really quick. I'll share my screen if everybody can see it. And I'll actually dig into the one for my gym, okay? Which I don't normally share this stuff, but I think it'll be important for me to show you guys. And then we can talk about what Jason's talking about. But this is the operations system that he's kind of referencing. Okay, so this is the first screen that you guys will see, which is just your team's, basically your team that you have on board. And it's broken up between, here, let me move these little faces so I can see. Sorry, guys. All right, these positions contain systems within themselves that you can hire for and then delegate tasks out to, which is why it's kind of broken up in this manner. Now, these are the exact sheets that my team and I use every single day. And I think it's pretty cool to be able to show you this. So the first one is this client roster, which is what Jason was talking about. Now, this shows essentially, it's a system, a self-contained system that tells the business owner what is happening at their business as far as new clients and clients that are leaving, right? So it shows you the attrition rate of your customers, okay? So if I scroll over here, you can see how many new customers we're bringing on board versus how many we are losing, right? So it's not too bad. As you can see, November wasn't the best month, but in December, we've only lost one member so far, right? Which is pretty good for a gym our size. And on the right-hand side, we have forced exits. So these are people that we force out because of non-payment or whatever it may be. Now, this is a super valuable system because at any point in time, it's important for you to know where your customer base is at, but more so your churn, right? And this defines churn. So this will move us into the churn category where we have attrition and revenue streams. This is a new one that I haven't released yet, but this is something that we're working on. Like I said, we test all of this stuff. So this particular system is used at first by the owner, but then eventually delegated to the ops manager. You got me, Jason?
Yes, sir. I got you. I thought you were taking on a tour. Sorry.
Okay. So, well, what we can do, what I can do is show you how it rolls into some of the duties. So let's go back to gym staffing.
Yep.
And the cool thing about this is, I want you guys to think about it like this. I'm going to zoom out so you can see this whole thing. Okay, these are all of the duties that need to be done at the gym, right? Here, this is the owner. We have a front desk, sales manager, ops manager, trainers, right? So I want you to look at it like this. Somebody has to do all of these. And most likely, when you first open your gym, you are doing all of these things, right? You can't, and it's my theory that you can't just get rid of something because you don't have the staff. That's why it's really hard to start a business, is because you're doing all these. So you can click on any one of these, right? I don't know. I just randomly clicked responsible for sales contracts.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody has to do that. You can't just not give your clients a sales contract after they sign up with you, right? Now, eventually, as the entrepreneur, you're not going to want to do all of these. So what we've done is we've divided them up and said, hey, I think you could have a position that could handle these systems here. And they're all related enough to where it makes sense for one person to own them. So when you're thinking about systems and you're thinking about building your team, these are all defined processes that are related enough. So when you decide as the owner you don't want to do these anymore, you can make that hire and say, hey, look, I'm going to teach you these systems or these processes that I've been doing over the past however long, right? And then you are going to do them. And now all of a sudden, this color switches from yellow to orange. You've hired your first ops person and they have taken over these systems, right? And the master operations is part of this particular system. I wouldn't say that any one of these below are an actual system within themselves. They're just part of what would be a larger system. And I think I defined in a other video what I thought the actual systems of the owning a brick and mortar gym are. And part of it would be like your client acquisition system, right? And your client retention system and things like that. And that would certainly, like retention would certainly fall in tracking everybody on your client roster, because how will you know if you're hitting your goal, right? Which your goal could be 5% attrition rate. How will you know if you're hitting your goal if you are not tracking it within systems, right? And so that's part of a bigger system. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And to that point, like you're not going to know if you're hitting your goals. I talk to gym owners all the time who are doing great things day in and day out and have not had the ability to ascend and hit their goals because they don't know where they're at for real. And so if I asked 100 gym owners, what's your close rate? 75 of them are going to tell me, oh, it's about 50-50. Or if I say, what's your attrition rate? Yeah, I think it's under 10%. And that's just not good enough to make actual informed decisions. That's not good enough to build, structured systems out of. I wanted to call attention to the kind of meat and potatoes of this screen we're on right now. We actually have in there, disc test profiles, samples of ads you can use to hire for these positions. These roles and responsibilities, we can't talk about systems without talking about 4Rs. We can't talk about 4Rs without talking about, your scorecard and the rest of the structure. It all kind of feeds together, even all the way back to, as you know, I'm going to mention core values, right? But these, like, when you roll these things out to your team, it's important that you're giving them to the right person, right? You're giving them to a person who is going to match that role, that wants that role, and can energize that role as best as possible. And so we try to provide you a framework underneath there. So I wanted to call attention to that as far as how we pick the people to take on these roles.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So a good exercise that you guys could do right now, or if you're watching the replay and you have time, is take a look at this. And I can almost guarantee you do not have all of these duties covered by the same people as me. I'd start playing around with it and start color coding it. Don't worry about messing it up. It's your gym, right? Start color coding it. So as you can see, like I have mine broken up between my training stuff over here. So my trainers and what they own. Then I have my operations, and I wrote down Jake. I wrote down Jake, and I colored it based on, what Jake does. And then I wrote down, oh, this is sales. So this is my bad. I scrolled up. Andy is doing operations now. Jake does sales. Sandy does front desks. I do the owner stuff as Joey. But I'd argue that you go through this yourself and recolor code it based on your current staff, right? And so maybe you only have 3 people. So you don't have 5 categories. And you're like, oh, Joey, I'm doing this right now. So then just change it. Change it to be, this color. or whatever it may be, right? And start dividing up all of your systems and see if it makes sense. And you're like, wow, it's kind of disorganized because for whatever reason, I have this person doing this thing over here. And you'll start identifying things that are out of place. Do you know what I mean? And that might give some transparency into your business, or you might be doing a lot of things as the owner that you thought you delegated to somebody else. And it turns out that you're like, wow, this is what an ops manager is supposed to be doing. But after I did this exercise, I realized they're only doing these 4 things. It's like, geez, I need to put a little bit more on them. That helped me a lot, right? To be honest, when I first started doing this, just take this list, and you don't have to move. To me, these are all the things that should be done. Now, if you know for a fact, like, hey, this thing right here doesn't apply at my business, then just delete it. Just get rid of it. There might be some stuff in here that says, track visits and mind body, and you might not have that, or you might have something else. Well, that's fine. It's not, that's why we make this work for your gym, and it's not just a cookie cutter program, right? But start color coding it based on your key employees and who's doing what, right? And then I swear to you, when you're done doing that and you take a step back and you look at it, you're like, huh, interesting. Yeah. I didn't really think so-and-so, or like, wow, this person is doing this when it's just completely outside of their role. No wonder it's bottlenecked, right? And then what you could do is you could reorganize in the colors that you have, and you might find that the orange person, your ops person, has 10 times the responsibility as everybody else, but you didn't synthesize it, or you couldn't think in the terms without it actually being in front of you to be like, wow, that's why they're so overwhelmed. Look at all the stuff that they're doing. Maybe we should reallocate some of this to other employees. Do you know what I mean? And so I think it helps a ton to go through that exercise, even if it takes you an hour to do. As a business owner, I think it's worth it. And by any means, like, you can add to this list if there's things in here that you do that's not part of. I did the meat and potatoes, right? This is the majority of everything that should be done at a gym, right? Tracking profit and loss sheets, responsible for calling referral leads. And we did our best job between Jason and I to put these in the categories that we think make sense for that same employee to do it. But anyways, that's kind of going into the weeds on it.
Yeah. So just to add to that, it's probably likely that the same type of person that's going to be great at dealing with customer service emails is probably going to be the detailed oriented person that you're going to want to do with billing, and they're going to want to deal with, retention type stuff. And so there's a rhyme and reason to why we put these things together. So as the guy, just speaking as the coach who's on the calls with all these entrepreneurs love to take stuff and blow it up and build it back together themselves. So I agree with Joey. You can take these and look at them and rearrange them a little bit. This works as it is. So don't create a whole new job for yourself just because you want to tinker with it. You can put this system in place exactly as it is, and as long as you're putting the right butts in the right seats, the right people in the right jobs, this will run a really dynamic, successful operation. So I just wanted to add that caveat, because I talk to people every day that are like, I like how you guys did that, but I'm going to do it totally differently. And I'm like, all right, well.
Yeah. And a lot of people, the stuff that you guys are looking at has been through a lot of iterations of change, right? To become one of the most effective ways of using it. It didn't start off like that, right? But so if you create your own thing, you're going to go through those same iterations of change, right? But then you're not leveraging any of our experience, to do that, because you're not going to get it right on your first try. Nobody does, right? And so you'll have to change things and move stuff and do it differently and all of that stuff, which is just normal. But then you're wasting a lot of time when you can get the finished product. So the reason I stopped sharing screen is because I wanted to go through what I think are some of the main systems at a gym and then how they work together, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Cool. So the first thing I'd like to do is kind of take a look at the client's journey. To me, like, the way that the business works always follows the client's journey, right? And so the first system that I would say can be packaged together, tasks, responsibilities, duties, and then given to somebody else would be acquisition, would be client acquisition, getting new customers, right? Because that plays a little bit into sales and marketing. Now you can even break this up into two smaller systems, which we have done at my gym, right? So I handle all of the lead generation, right, which I've since delegated to Fuzz. So even though they're the ones doing the day-to-day stuff, I own that system, right? So when I go into my meeting with my, the rest of my leaders, and they say, hey, where's all the leads at? I'm not going to say, I don't know, talk to Fuzz. No, I own it, right? So I decided to delegate it, but it's up to me. So as the owner, I'm responsible for getting the leads, right? Which if you were to look at that particular system, what do I have to do? Well, I have to create ads. I have to write copy. I have to figure out where to place those ads. I have to take a look at all of the free lead gen things and decide which ones I'm performing. In fact, we just did an exercise at my gym the other day, and it was like, okay, we have these 6 methods of generating leads. Let's be honest with ourselves and rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 on how effective we think we are at them. And we had Facebook ads, and we had our signage, and we had our website and SEO, and we had our outreach through our list that we have with UpLaunch and sending them messages. And we have our free Facebook group, right? And then we have, I forget the last, referrals, right? So those 6 things. And we wrote them on a board, in fact, the whiteboard that's behind me. And we said, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, how effective are we at each one of these? And by doing that exercise, we realized, wow, we're really good at this thing, but we're really not good at this thing, or we're not doing a good enough job at this thing. And so we're leaving whatever on the table. My point is that one person owns that system. It is their job to make sure that enough people get into your business so it can grow, right? And so we know how many people we're losing per month. That's another system, right? But in order for us to grow, that tells us how many new people we need to bring on, right? So I think the first system of any business, particularly a gym, is client acquisition. Now we've decided to break it up into 2 roles. Number 1 is the person that is bringing all the leads in. And then number 2 is the person that's actually selling them a program and then moving them to a trainer. So if you were to follow my model, you have one system that is completely packaged up, and it is given to somebody to execute. That person happens to be me, and I need to get bodies in the door. And I have all of these different methods on how I do that, and we've shared those with you, right? Then the next system would be the salesperson, right? Or again, we're talking of, there's people and processes. I'm just talking about the sales process. Maybe it's the same person. Maybe it's the owner because you haven't hired a salesperson yet. So the next process would be sales, right? So what does a salesperson do? Well, they're responsible for these tasks. And what I've done is shown you the tasks that I think that they should do in order to complete their system, right? So basically responsible for outbound sales, right? Responsible for cold messaging on Facebook and IG, responsible for getting and calling referrals leads, right? This is how they do their job, right? And so it goes from one person and then it hands off to the other person. Now, let's say you're the owner and you're doing both of them and you're like, I finally made enough profit to where I don't want to do this system anymore. You can hire somebody and then give them that system, give them that process. And that's how delegation works. So the second system, I think, would be sales, right? So the salesperson, it's more than just sitting down and talking with somebody and getting them to say yes, right? There's a multitude of things that they need to do, things like following up with people that said no, things like giving appointment reminders to people that they have, building reports, sending pictures. Then they have to do things like processing contracts and putting them in the system. They have to make the introduction from the salesperson to the coach once they've closed them on the person that they're going to be working with. They have to. So go ahead.
I was just going to jump in there and say, and at each step there, you're describing a sales, which is a role, right? But at each step there are systems where you can use technology or you can use a structure, whether it's a whiteboard, a printout on a piece of paper, or like Zapier and all sorts of other online systems to make that process more and more streamlined.
Those
right?
are tools.
Yeah, that's absolutely part of it, right? It's not just that person is now responsible as the role for those systems that live within that area of the business, right?
Exactly. And so they're able to use whatever tools they want to use to facilitate, and that's their ownership, right? That's them taking ownership of their job. So Jason and I might run systems differently. Maybe I'm freaking processing all these contracts by hand, but Jason found a way to automate that part of the system by using a form that automatically puts the sales into the whatever spreadsheet tracker and whatever, but that's the point, is like you want to create this system that's included, that can be given to somebody else. Because so one day if you're like, hey, okay, I've delegated lead gen. Now I don't feel like meeting with people every single day, because I don't like the rejection of 50% of them saying no, which is part of the job, right? I want to hire somebody in the way that you want to think of it, in terms of, I'm going to delegate this system. I'm going to delegate this process to this new role, right? Processes and roles. And so what should they be doing? Well, everything that you were just doing that's related to this system of onboarding, of client onboarding. That's where they live, is within that part of client onboarding.
Yeah, and to that point, that's why I know that as the owner, you can write the absolute best email for follow up on somebody changing their card information. But you shouldn't be writing it every day, because then of course you're going to be great at writing these types of emails. And then when you go to hire somebody, maybe they don't know how to do it as well as you can. But if you can write the perfect email once, and then you save that as a swipe file, as something that somebody can copy and paste and maybe slightly edit, now that has just become a system, right? So instead of solving the problem hastily, you've now built a bridge over that problem that's permanent, right? This is what we do when somebody wants to cancel. This is what we do when somebody needs to update their card. This is what we do when somebody wants to lose 50 pounds and they're female. Like that's what a meal plan is, right? Like these are systems. So what's the next system?
Yeah. So after the sale, I think the next system is working with the coaches, right? Is the fulfillment of your program, and they are responsible for that. Now, usually as the owner, you start off doing it. So what does that mean? Well, that means meeting with them. That means doing nutrition evaluation, or seeing where they're at. That means taking their weight and body fat, coaching them, giving them workouts, all of these things, these client experiences, right? And we have it, of course, listed on everything that we think that person should be doing. But client fulfillment would be the next system that needs to be done on a regular basis for your business to survive. And again, at first, the owner is probably doing it, but then you're like, hey, I don't want to do this system. I don't want to train all of these people forever. I want to focus more on, and you'd be focusing on, lead gen or sales or whatever, right? So then you teach that system. You teach, okay, when you get a new client, this is what you start with, right? Then you do this, then you do this. You'll be training them the entire time. If they want to cancel, you do this. If they want to, and you have all of these things that pertain to servicing that customer, okay? And so to me, that would be the next system, is the actual fulfillment of what your business does, right? And so again, these things can be broken up into subsystems, and a lot of companies do that, but they don't always have to be. And I'd argue that the less amount of employees you can have, because could you hire somebody for 10 hours a week to just do cancellation, freeze forms, and enter contracts in? Sure. But then your business becomes more complex. Why don't you just have the coach do that, right? So
one thing I wanted to add for fulfillment in particular, for years, this, by the way, it's our 10-year anniversary this month. For years, I was kind of deferential. I was like, you're great. Why don't you just coach class the way that you think is great? And I think that worked with some mixed results. Some people did better than others, and some people did really, really great. Because I didn't want everybody to have to be me in order to fulfill on a class or fulfill on a coaching, whatever they were doing. But what I found was, genuinely, when I did systemize that, when I did go back and say, I want you to warmly greet every single person in class by name. I want you to have a question of the day that is unique to that thing, and have every single person do it. At the end of class, at my gym, we all, pre-COVID, we all put our hands in the middle, and we had a big chant like, on three, we're going to say, crush it, or whatever, 1, 2, 3, crush it. And those types of little lame things that I found that I was doing successfully, there's tons of my coaches who would not have necessarily done them on their own. But when they implemented them, all of a sudden I was getting this feedback of like, wow, I never would have done that, but you made me do that. And now I feel like my classes are more fun. And so if there's things that you think are important that you're doing, don't think it's silly to put on paper, and then everybody circles up and they put their hands in the middle and we say a silly cheer. Like, it really does, you can systemize fun to some extent. And I would say don't sleep on it, especially for fulfillment. There's
100%.
there's things that you do that people really identify with.
100%. And that's like your special sauce of your business, right? And so like McDonald's, the cooks don't have a choice on if they want to put that Big Mac sauce on the Big Mac. You know, it's not up to like whether they like it or not, right? That's
Yeah.
how that business makes their thing. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing with your gym. And I put that in. We have a document which you guys have access to. It's called the standards, right? And it is basically how Body by Design does our thing on a consistent basis. You're always doing this. You're always, and you could add fun, and I'd argue that I probably should add that to mine. I should add more. I think I would have a better service if I added more of those things that I know our customers really, really like and appreciate, that maybe not everybody fully understands that. They might think it's not important, right? And so that's kind of the job of the entrepreneur as the visionary, especially once you become the CEO, is taking a step back and looking at your business saying, man, they really love Coach Carly, but
Yeah.
for some reason they are not liking this. What's different here? And
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, they're doing something differently. So your job is to find out the best of what everybody's doing and try to create it, try to systemize it so everybody's doing that.
You gotta take the time to really get introspective on what your service is, what the best people are doing every single time. And really it is, take the dog, go for a long walk and just think about like, what is it that I do that makes me successful? I really do believe that like the better you know yourself, the better you know what you're great at and what you're not great at, and the same for your staff, the more you can make the right decisions without having to do a ton of trial and error, right? I know that I don't know if we want to go into more specific systems. I want to make sure we talk about how to roll it out at some point before we sign off, though.
Yeah, I think that whoever's watching has a good enough idea of how, like, what we consider the systems they should be following, and then exactly how it's executed. And if you guys want the details, like if you want me to explain the next system and the next system and the next system, that's what's in the training, right? And in particular, I did a video in the low stress, high profit group, where I covered for like 45 minutes just this exact thing. So we won't beat you to death going over it. But I think the idea for today was to help you understand just more so the idea of systems and what they are actually, like what they actually are versus like some people might think that, Mind Body is a system they use at their gym. That's not the context that we're speaking of in systems. That's a tool that you use to help facilitate a system.
100%. So a couple points. One, there's 10 different things that somebody can do. If you look at our profit and loss statement, there's 100 different numbers that we track. If you look at a sales funnel, there's a dozen or so different numbers that we can kind of parse out. One thing I would say is the better you understand your systems and what winning means for that particular role in that particular system, the fewer KPIs, the fewer things that staff member should be responsible for. So if possible, like in a perfect world, each staff member would have like 1 or maybe 2 key performance indicators that are going to dictate whether they're doing a great job or whether you kind of need to pop the hood and take a look at what they're doing in a more detailed level. And so just an example of that would be like for sales, what I want to know is how many sales did you get, right? What percentage, because maybe they're not responsible for lead gen, but what percentage did you close, period? And then what percentage showed? And maybe that's it, right? But then of course you can dig in more depth. Can you talk a little bit, unless do you have any comments on that?
Just that they might have more key performance indicators for themselves, but when it pertains to the rest of the business, like you as the owner, you probably don't need to know how many follow-ups they had, how many, all this stuff. You just want to know how many sales they had out of the, so when we have team meetings, everybody tells me their numbers. I don't tell them what they did. You need to give them that ownership, guys. You need to have them explain, their key performance indicators to the rest of the team. So then you have your lead gen guys like, I gave you, 100 leads this week. And then the sales guy says, I closed 20 of them. Do you need to know about why Mrs. Jones didn't talk to her husband yet? And no, right? Just have them bring the KPI that is important for the whole team.
100%. So let's talk a little bit about rollout. So I'm a new client. I just joined up with FitBiz, but I've been a gym for 6 years. We've got, some semblance of systems, or at least we have a way that we do things, or we wouldn't exist, right? So one of the things I like to talk about is how do we take that to our team and not have, people not get on board? How do we have people that are going to adjust fire and move out and everybody get in line and start rowing the boat in the same direction together. And so, Joey, in your opinion, what is the best way for somebody to roll out kind of all of phase 3, right? Like, how would you recommend somebody roll that out? And then I'll kind of give mine as well.
So yeah, the way I look at it is the first thing you'd want to do is you'd want to articulate to your team that you have a new mission, right? You have a new mission, and this is what the mission is. And this is where you need to be that charismatic leader, because you need to sell them on your new mission. We want to help 1,000 people in the year 2021. We want to do whatever it may be, right? So first you're building up why you're going to be making a change, and you need to sell them on that why. And after you do, then you can proceed to tell them the change, because it will make sense. If you go in without the why, you'd be like, hey, we're going to do all these things a new way. They'd be like, I don't want to, because I hate change, right? So first I would essentially roll out the why, which is your mission statement, which we help you and we talk about it, and we talk about core tenets and that kind of stuff. But then you could simply go into, in order for us to best succeed at accomplishing this, that all of us think it's a great mission. You want to get an affirmation form that they also agree and think it's a good mission, right? Well, awesome. In order for us to succeed, we have to do these things, right? And don't be afraid to show them that you as the owner are overwhelmingly doing the majority of them. Say like, our goal is to be able to split these things up so I can really focus on these things, because that's where I think I excel. Now, I'm not exactly sure, who can do what. And I always say that because I want the people that are go-getters, that want to take on more responsibility, I want them to come to me, right? Because I don't want to say, Susie, you're going to be doing this, and John, you're going to be doing this. I don't like doing that, because that's when you get backlash, right? So you tell them, these are all the things that you are doing, right? And these are the things that I think somebody else could be doing that I'm doing right now, right? So if anybody has any interest in, taking on this role for the business, please, feel free to reach out to me, right? And I always do it because the go-getter is going to do a better job than the person that you think would be the best fit for it, but doesn't want to do it, right? But because they might still say yes, right? Because they don't want to let you down, or they want extra money. But so anyways, that's usually how I do it. And if I have these systems predetermined before I have that meeting, so I can lump them together so they don't just pick and choose like, oh, I'll process contracts. No. It's part, like, these are the things that I'm looking to, delegate out so I can focus, and then explain to them what you need to focus on, the entrepreneur as the owner, to accomplish this mission, and explain to them why it's so important. You can't leave that out. Otherwise they're gonna be like, oh, he just wants to go on vacation and we're gonna be doing all this stuff. No. I need help with these things. And don't be afraid to say you need help, right? Yeah. I need help with these things so I can do this. And that's the first meeting. And that's the beginning of, and I've broken that out into 2 meetings before, where the first one is I just get them sold on the mission and what we need to accomplish, and get them super fired up. And then the next meeting, it's like, hey guys, after thinking about it this past week, like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do all of these things, here's where, and then you go from there.
Yeah. So that's, I couldn't agree more. I think that the way that I put it is, you need to become an evangelist for the direction of the business, for the vision of the business. You need to proactively sell people on the future and the benefit of this new plan. So that first phase is all about learning and planning yourself. I would not be including every single staff member in the learning and planning phase when you as the owner are uncertain, right? I don't exactly know how this is going to fit in. I don't exactly know about this new high ticket organic first leads, the type of stuff that we preach at FitBiz. So the first step is get your head around it. That's what we do in the training modules. That's what we do on our phase calls, is we get your head around it. But then you need to take that and you need to evangelize it to your team. And the way we do that, you kind of alluded to it. The phrase I like is clarity and context. So I want to provide context. Guys, how many people want to help people better? Every fucking hand will shoot up. How many people think what we do is good? I do. How many people would love to give a better customer service and be able to make more money? Me, everybody. Okay, now they have context. This is how we're going to get to that future that we just all got excited about. That's clarity. And so now I'm going to say, So I like one big group meeting where we evangelize through context and clarity, and then we do the one-on-ones where we'll roll out 4Rs documents and say, hey, I think you're the best, most experienced coach we have, and that's why I've decided you're going to be my head coach. And hey, I think you're so good. You've been already answering the phones. You've been already standing at the front desk. You're going to be my ops manager. We had this kind of discussion. Here's exactly what you have to do. I'm going to provide you clarity and the context for what winning means. This is your KPIs. This is how we're going to judge whether or not what you're doing is working and keeping the boat moving forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, it's important to have these as one-on-ones, not in a group, like, because they are going to have their own 4Rs, their own responsibilities. They're going to own these systems. And I think, one important thing to keep in mind, and I don't think it's an issue with a small gym, is to not create silos. What I mean is, so like Elon Musk and Steve Jobs were really big on this, is they don't want to have specific roles or people think that the company is winning because they're winning in their area. No. Like, unless you are collectively accomplishing the mission, none of us are winning. It doesn't matter if your department or your whatever is hitting their goals and winning. If we're not collectively getting closer to the mission, then none of us are winning, right? And it's the same thing with your business. It's like, it doesn't matter if your sales guy is closing, 30 people if you're losing 40, right? None of you are winning, right? And so, like, it's important for them to understand how they fit in that ecosystem, right? So if they own a certain system, if they own a certain role, it's important for them to understand how what they do impacts the next person, right? And so that's really important when you're looking at, and it's your job as the owner, as the entrepreneur, to make sure that they understand that, and they understand that just because they excel at their role, because you could have a sales guy freaking selling hot, and these people are not going to stay because the expectations he said were just ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
And you can't fulfill on it,
Yeah.
right? But he thinks he's winning. He thinks he's winning when in general your company's not, right? And so that's, yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, buddy. So the 2 points I want to make about that, selling hot, just in case you don't know what that term is where you're just printing contracts through like over promising and then have no ability to deliver on that. I've done it before. It sucks. I sold like $100,000 one time and it was just 0 people ended up buying. But you don't want to be selling hot. And then number 2, one of the things that we do, and you mentioned this, is in those meetings, each department reports their KPIs out loud to each other. And if there's a reason for somebody else to add into that, oh, hey, maybe I thought about this the other day. Would that help you achieve a better result? Yes. And so that's how we break down silos, is by having communication where a concentrated piece of information like KPIs is disseminated across everybody. So we know sales last week, they closed 10 people and they closed 75%. Sales is good. Retention, man, we lost 15% of our clients last month. Hey, would it be helpful if I was writing handwritten card, whatever, whatever you can do to help. And so that's how we break down silos. I just wanted to give like the tactical end of that. So we're getting kind of close here. Any last thoughts on systems, on how to best roll it out? Anything at all, Joey?
Just the end vision for you guys. So I would consider my gym being probably the end vision for most people watching this, is in that meeting that we've been talking about. I do very little because they own their systems to a point to where they don't need much out of me. The sales guy will talk directly to the ops manager, talking directly to the head trainer who oversees that fulfillment. So like, Jason, why do I have a head trainer? Because I need somebody to make sure they're always giving the high fives. I need somebody to make sure he owns those systems, right? And so those are direct reports. But it's at a point where I could easily attend that meeting via Zoom, right? And I can ask my questions, but the team, they're running all of the day-to-day operations. And that's ultimately why you have systems. If you are doing something as the owner on a day-to-day basis, you're doing the same tasks over and over and over, that is absolutely something you can delegate, right? And so the end goal, I would think, for most entrepreneurs is to not do any repeated tasks. Right. And so that's something that I do, is I do not have any repeated tasks that I have to do day in and day out. Right.
So that's, I can't agree more. That's it. Like, we've been talking big picture and we've talked a little bit. Let's get real small and just say, like, don't get overwhelmed. If you're not able, if you don't have the bandwidth in December with your gym maybe shutting down and you're just starting this whole new thing and you just rolled out high ticket, if you can't roll out every single system that we've already done for you, pick one. And Joey just said it, like, don't self-employed people solve problems every day like a mechanic. You work on the car every day, you do the oil change, you change the brakes every single day. Entrepreneurs solve a problem once really, really well, and then they never have to touch it again. And so that is like, at the very, very smallest level, the way to start with having systems is write the best email that you can the next time a problem arises that you need to email somebody, and then save it and pass it on in the form of a Google Doc to somebody to do. That's how we implement systems, like boots on the ground, ultra tactical. Don't let your eyes gloss over when Joey and I talk about this end result that took both of us, 8 to 10 years to accomplish. What it really is just stop solving that same problem every day. Pick one thing and stop it. Just do the best you can once and save it and make sure that that's recreated every single time. That's how you start to win with systems, right?
100%.
Great.
That's all I got. That's all I got, man. I think we covered it. I just wanted to give them the end, the end vision is like, look, guys, the systems will set you free, because even if you decide to own a few things, ultimately it'll be your choice on what you want to do. And there's no reason you can't delegate everything you're doing except for the visionary stuff. But again, no repeated stuff. So that's all I got on systems. We went, 50 minutes in. I hope that you guys enjoyed this.
I hope you're still here. Hey, on a personal note, this is Joey and I's 1-year anniversary working together for FitBiz University. It's been a great year. I look forward to many more.
Yeah, man, me too. Just a tip of the iceberg of where we're at and what we can do together. Yeah. Very exciting stuff. If you guys watch this live, type in a live so we know how many people are attending. One thing I always forget is, like, you have ops managers, you should have these people in our group, tag them in this, right? Because that way they hear from the horse's mouth of what, the expectations that you are going to have from them, in order to grow your business successfully. That's always helped me, at least, is if a mentor of mine has always said something that I really, really liked. I've always tagged somebody else in it, because the positioning is a little bit different than coming from you. So
yeah, couldn't agree more. Thanks a lot, Joey.
All right. Appreciate you guys.